Welcome to Fear No Evil, where Psalms 23 is the dominant scripture, and the Lord is my shepherd at all times. If there are any survivors listening, I pray that you have a peaceful day. Child sexual abuse is a form of abuse that really interrupts a child's life, and it really affects a child. There's not one area of a child's life that is not affected by child sexual abuse. And just because that child grows into an adult doesn't mean that their life is not affected by child sexual abuse. Every survivor is different. And one thing I am finding, there are two different kinds of survivors to me. One survivor can make it in the world. They're very successful. They appear very well put together. However, in their personal life is where it falls apart. But nobody at the workplace will know that. We get close to our coworkers, but unless you are going to the other person's house and you are there often, you don't really know the people you're around. We don't show everybody our true core inner selves. Now, the other survivor also has the intellectual ability because child sexual abuse does not affect the intellect of a child. A child can be sexually abused and still go to school and still maintain good grades, can be the captain of the football team. They can go on to do great things in life, but their own personal life suffers. Now, the other kind of sexual abuse survivor to me as they're functioning in the world may have trouble organizing themselves in the workplace. They're the ones who it's hard to keep a job. It's hard to find a job. It's hard to walk that planned out map that society likes to give people. You may have this plan of going to school and going to college, getting married and all this other stuff. But when you are sexually abused, that is really going to alter your ability to navigate those different areas of life. Now, they may not be able to make it in the workplace, but in their home life is where they have it all together. Now, I'm sure there's other types of sexual abuse survivors, but the image that sexual abuse survivors can't function in the world is a misnomer. There are children have to survive, and they do survive. And some children go through school and make it, and other children end up committing suicide. Some of them drop out of school. Some of them have a very hard time navigating the teenage years, especially if they've repressed their own abuse. Now, there's a lot of research on homosexuality, and there's a lot of research on child sexual abuse. The research is very, very confusing. And the fact that we don't even put the research together, but science and psychology tries to separate it, then you never quite see the link between child sexual abuse and the LGBT issues. And I would also like to say that there are a lot of professionals who still cannot see the link. Now I'm going to start going to the research. But I'm going to start with Carla Clark because she wrote hers on November 21st, 2016. We have just entered into 2018. So this article is very recent, and it was published in Sexual Abuse, a journal of research and treatment. The new research suggests that a child's gender nonconformity, which is more common for non-heterosexuals, that may make them more desirable targets for pedophilia and child sexual abusers. This woman is a doctor. I can't even begin to express how much the statement is just ridiculous. And then she comes up here in the article and she says, many homophobic religious institutions make unfounded claims about same-sex sexual child abuse, causing homosexuality, like those coming from the pro-heterosexual anti-gay activist group. Heterosexuals organize for a moral environment or home. They say we can see that sexual abuse can theoretically account for every case of homosexuality. Under the lens of science, these claims are considered ridiculous and laughable at best, often followed by the outrageous and scientifically unfounded claims that being gay is the cause of pedophilia. Well, Miss Carla Clark, I find it absolutely ridiculous and laughable that you would even suggest that the latest research stands against this argument, providing the most convincing causal evidence that many gay men's childhood that is linked with higher rates of sexual abuse in boys who later identify as gay in adulthood, not sexual abuse, making a child gay, that because they are homosexual at 2, 3 baby, that the pedophile targeted the child. People who molest children are not just pedophiles. They are also child molesters, which are two different sets of sexual offenders. They're very different in their characteristics. So why are you not mentioning child molestation, but just pedophilia? Why? Because you want to make your political point. Well, I find it laughable that you would even suggest that because someone may be gay as a child, according to your terms, that made them the target of child sexual abuse? Do they read the research on what may possibly make a child a target for child sexual abuse? And once again, any child at the same time can be a target for child sexual abuse? This is laughable to me. This whole article is just laughable to me. And I find it equally laughable that this doctor, who has multiple years of education and was able to succeed in society, in the function of being a doctor, wants child sexual abuse survivors to listen to this. That is why many child sexual abuse survivors do not go to counseling. This is what we hear. This is so not true. So what are you saying to the sexual abuse survivor who's sitting in their chair, who may be a child or an adult, and you're suggesting this? The first thing they may be thinking is, am I gay? Wait a minute, am I gay? Is that why I was sexually abused? They may be in heterosexual relationships. They may be in no relationships. They may have children. They may not have children. How dare you suggest this? How dare you suggest this? To suggest that their abuse could be in males? She's just talking about males. What about the females? Are they too sexually abused because they're lesbian when they're babies? Where's the research on all of this? Science. Where's the research on all of this? The psychological community. Where's the research on all of this? Lawmakers, as you make laws. Where's the research on all of this? Because there's barely any research on it. Most of the research slants one way. Therefore, this research is very biased. Because as a sexual abuse survivor, I was not abused because I was gay. I've never identified as a homosexual. Therefore, your stance can't be true. And then she says, under the lens of science, these claims are considered ridiculous because now you want to pit your opinion against what you say, the homophobic religious institutions. I'm not a religious institution. I don't even go to church. I've gone to church a lot in my life, but they never talked about homosexuality, and they certainly never talked about child sexual abuse. So how did the homophobic institutions try to teach me that people who are gay abuse children more? I've heard this from the research. That's where I heard this from. I've never heard this outside of the research, and I find it laughable and ridiculous. Because any sexual abuse survivor that I know, who some are homosexuals and some are not, we were targeted for sexual abuse, and it wasn't because of our sexual orientation.